Jimbo Fisher doing Jimbo Fisher stuff. This is going to be fun. We're going to talk about the NIL conversation as well as other sports news going on in the world. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up in me?
Welcome in to an all-new Sports Stove podcast presented by InTheClutch.com, licensed apparel for Major League Baseball, NBA, and other sports as well. Go to InTheClutch.com, use the code SPORTSSTOVE, and you're going to get 10% off your purchase. So again, that's InTheClutch.com. Use the code SPORTSSTOVE for 10% off your purchase. Welcome into a Friday episode being recorded on a Thursday night with my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Boy, we got some fun things to talk about tonight. So
when old people act like children, we have content for days. So it's been a fun day to kind of sit around and listen and pay attention and watch and see exactly what happens. We've seen Saban actually begin to backpedal a little bit. He said, I had never said anybody did anything illegal and all this kind of nonsense. But nonetheless, it was a fun day. We're going to get to the Saban stuff here in just a second. But it's interesting, Dad. We're kind of winding down to the end of the college season. Most people have their graduations already. And that means that we're entering into a weird time of the year where there's not any active college sports going on. Baseball is still currently winding down as well. But then you get into the trying to raise money, you get into the banquets and the different things. And when that happens, coaches sit in front of people who are on their side, and they tend to say things to try to get those people excited about something. Nick Saban, along with others, sat in a room full of Alabama businessmen, assumingly for the purpose of raising funds or continuing to bring in more funds. And you had a comment. Let's listen to what Nick Saban said.
And you've read about them. You know who they are. I mean, we were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team. Made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it.
All right, so obviously, the most comments that we've talked about is the Jimbo Fisher stuff, and we'll talk about the Deion Sanders comments in a second, and we're going to listen to Jimbo's comments also here in a second. But something that intrigues me is what he said there at the end of that statement that seems to kind of be getting looked over, and he says, I'm not sure that we can sustain this, meaning he's saying we're doing it too. We are going to be doing it if we've not already been doing it. His quarterback famously made $1 million last year. And of course, his comment is, well, it was after he got to campus. It's not something we used to lure him to college, to Alabama. But I found it interesting that at the end of that statement that he says, I'm not sure that we can sustain that, meaning we got to get on board with what everybody else is doing. Would you agree with that?
I think that's a fair assessment maybe of what he meant. Again, I guess if there was more comments, maybe he would say the NIL can't be sustained if it's going to be like this, or maybe that, hey, we're still very competitive now, but, we're not going to be able to sustain that if, everybody else is not going to go by the same rules we do. I think that would have been his implication. But, Nick Saban always knows why he's saying what he's saying. So,
well, and it's in a room full of money. He's in a room full of money, and they've obviously done a great job of making sure that Alabama athletes receive money. But it just seems like with the audience he's talking to people because he's basically, in my opinion, saying, we're going to need more money. We're going to need you to step up and do what the boosters at A&M did. And we need you to step up and do what Barstool did for Jackson State and Deion Sanders. And so it's this this mentality of we need more money, which they're going to get it anyways. He didn't have to say any of the stuff he said. But what surprised me, I guess, the most is how blatant he was to call out Texas A&M. And again, they're the team that finished number 1 in recruiting ahead of him. And then he also called out Jackson State with Deion Sanders as well. And we'll listen to that in a minute. But we need to hear the comments made later this evening from Jimbo Fisher Thursday evening. So it's not the original stuff that came out, but he had a press conference, a little bit more things. Let's listen to what Jimbo Fisher had to say.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families. That they broke state laws. That they're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen. And it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families and Texas A&M because we do things right. We're always going to do things right.
So that's Jimbo Fisher's response to Nick Saban. A couple things in that he says, after he says, we never bought any players, he very quickly says, no rules were broken. So that was interesting, I thought. And then he goes very personal against Nick Saban. He's a narcissist and dig into his past and you'll find things he said earlier. You'll find things that you don't want to know. If you dig into his past, talk to his former assistants. Jimbo said, I would never work for him again, even when he had the opportunity to earlier. He had a comment as well. I think I saved it here. Let me pull it up real quick. Sorry. He says, you coach with people like Bobby Bowden and learn how to do things. You coach with other people and learn how not to do things. There's a reason I ain't went back and worked for him with opportunities. Don't want to be associated with him. So there again, Jimbo says, I learned how to do the right thing from Bobby Bowden and how to do the wrong thing from Nick Saban. Yeah, this has gotten very, very personal very, very quickly with these two guys. And of course, Jimbo has worked under Saban at LSU, and now they are, and head coaches of the same conference and all that kind of stuff happening. I mean, what's your response to what Jimbo had to say?
Well, I mean, I think he had to respond to it. Again, at this point, like you said, it's gotten personal, and really probably the big issue that has to be looked at is the whole NIL thing. You know, when he said no rules were broken, okay, what rules are there? Are there enough rules in place that you can go back? I saw something earlier where Nick Saban said that, people are admitting they're breaking rules. Well, I don't know that that is true. And again, when nobody's doing anything about it, again, we've talked about this, and this is probably going to bring it to a head. Two big time coaches. There's going to have to be some definition with the NCAA. Did somebody do something wrong or did they not, do something wrong? And there's way too many gray areas in this. But yeah, this has gotten very personal, very surprised a little bit that, Saban went after him so directly. And of course, then Fisher is defending himself, talking about things in Saban's past. To me, what I thought of when I read or heard a lot of this today was, Saban saying, well, we didn't do anything wrong. Does he really think he can control all his boosters? Sure. Will they ever prove he told somebody to do something? No, that's never been the problem. The problem is boosters, acting independently, making contacts. And now with social media, how easy is it, to communicate with kids and stuff that way? When, Fisher, I think, was maybe stretching a little bit when he, talked about 17-year-old kids and their parents, and you're attacking them. No, he attacked A&M, not them. Now, if there's a deal about breaking, federal laws or something, but again, I'm not sure that's what was said from there. But it would make the recruiting trail awfully interesting right now with there, and I would think some schools will sit back and try to get the fallout from this.
Well, who wins in this situation? If you're a recruit and you're looking at A&M and Alabama, do you go to the place that openly pays players, or do you go to the place that says, we're not going to do that, we're not going to pay players? Not to get them to school, of course, is what he's saying. But, I mean, in all of what Nick Saban is, as one of the best, if not the best, college football coach in history, in my opinion, he's coming off looking bad in this situation versus what he was trying to do and kind of point out some things at A&M. I don't know. You look at a lot of college kids and you hear, well, A&M, they did get their guys a lot of money. And whether they did it then, as far as we know, they did it all under the stipulations of the rules, then, why would I go to a place that hides the money when I can go to a place that flaunts the money?
Yeah, I mean, the way the system is right now, kids, it's all right for them to go and get money, and obviously they're going to know where the better opportunities are, whether they're promised stuff. Now, if you ever get into their signing contracts, they're doing things like that before recruiting. But again, I think we talked about this in one of the other episodes. When you look back at some of the other, things that have happened over history, I mean, kids were driving Trans Ams, before they ever National Signing Day. So, this is not new. And actually, that was at one of the schools that we're talking about here. So, it's interesting that they have made it, so personal. Like I said, that maybe Saban wanted this. Maybe he wanted to flush Jimbo out and, get him talking and saying there. Otherwise, I mean, Alabama, okay, we finished number 2. I mean, Alabama still has a real stranglehold, it seems like, in recruiting from there. Now, coaches have moved, and the SEC is going to get much more competitive even than it already is. But to me, both these if I was a coach in the SEC and one of these other schools, I'd be licking my chops saying, hey, we're going to get the fallout of this. Kids are going to start avoiding, these two things here. So I don't know. Like I said, the NCAA, or they're going to have to form an organization. Something has to get it under control, or it's just going to, get out of hand. And this is probably an out of hand situation now.
I mean, yeah, it was, and it is. You talk about contracts. Contracts are not allowed to be signed before the player signs. That's part of the NIL stuff. Can't be made before you come. It's a deal of after you get here, then you can sign NIL deals, but it cannot be the reason you come to school. You cannot be promised or anything like that. And clearly, they were doing this before NIL. They're doing it during NIL. Schools are promising things, and they're promising money. Boosters are promising money. If you come to my school, I will make sure you're well taken care of. Those sorts of things. A former Florida State player, Travis Johnson, he says, in regards to Nick Saban, I'm getting this from 24/7 Sports. He says A&M bought every player on their team. He says, let's see here. He said that Alabama offered him 6 figures in the class of 2000. He says y'all was NIL before NIL. So saying that Alabama offered him 6 figures back in 2000. We know. We don't claim to be ignorant on this fact. We know that teams cheat. We know that schools pay players. It's happened all along. I live in Lexington, Kentucky, And when we hired John Calipari at the University of Kentucky, everybody that was against Kentucky said, oh, well, he's a cheater, and just wait, you're going to give up all your wins at some point. And I said, yeah, and it's going to be worth it. Every single bit of it. Whatever Cal does to get players in, if he wins championships, whether eventually they get taken away or not, it's going to be worth it. We're going to be happy with it because they're winning games and it's exciting and those kinds of things. Now, Cal's only won one championship and he has not lived up to the hype. But that being said, I don't think Alabama fans care if Nick Saban's cheating. I don't think A&M fans care if Jimbo Fisher or the boosters are offering money before players get there. All they care about is, do we win? And now you got a huge game coming up this fall at Alabama with A&M in town. It's going to be an absolute chaos. It's going to be a lot of fun at the same time. And at some point we're going to like it. Let's listen to one more thing Saban said, this time talking about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders.
Just like Nate said, we have a rule right now that says you cannot use name, image, and likeness to entice a player to come to your school. Hell, read about it in the paper. I mean, Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year that was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper, and they bragged about it. Nobody did anything about it.
There you go. There's the phrase, right? Nobody did anything about it. Basically, what Saban's saying is there's rules in place and they're not being enforced. Doing so, he calls out Coach Prime, and Coach Prime's not happy about it. He says he will make some statements on it as well. But as surprising as it is that he went after A&M, it's got to be more surprising that he brought Deion Sanders into the conversation. And, of course, they are refuting it. No, I don't have $1 million and all this kind of stuff. Listen, Deion cheats, Saban cheats, Fisher cheats. Everybody's cheating. Therefore, it's equality. That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, everyone's doing the same thing, just some people are doing it better than others. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Well, I may not keep up with all the details well enough, but when he was talking about, Deion Sanders said, well, it was in the paper, they were bragging about it. I don't remember when it happened hearing about bragging about, we paid him money. They bragged about the fact they got somebody from, a Division I school to go to their school. And again, why would Saban worry about, one guy unless he's worried about, most little schools are not going to be able to do that. And like I said, it's just kind of a little bizarre that, he went after this. But like I said, he was meeting with boosters. He was meeting with business people. But again, he's smart enough to know that everything he was saying was going to, get broadcast and be repeated from there. And obviously when he named names, he knew what he was doing there. And so I'm a little puzzled about what, why this took on the shape that it did. But yeah, everybody has the recruiting. That's why people go on probation. That's why people were getting sanctions, and most big schools did sooner or later because they were doing things. Well, now the rule is, you shouldn't have to get sanctioned. Everybody can do it, but they're going to have to, get some kind of control over it. And I don't know. Like you said, everybody's doing it, and for Saban to act like he doesn't do it, that was a little strange. And like you said, they can come up with all kinds of people, whether it's assistant coaches or former players, that are going to talk about this, with a large number of schools, no doubt about it. I think, schools get to a point. Saban got to a point where he probably didn't have to do some of the stuff other schools did because people wanted to come to Alabama, and he's turning out so many people in the NFL. But now the thing that NIL, and maybe they didn't see this coming, is you have college kids making more than NFL players. You have college quarterbacks who can legally make more money than NFL rookies can because they're restricted, on a salary cap thing with the rookies in the NFL. So that's created a situation that I think that's got to be controlled, because that's not going to work if, hey, I can make more money in college than I'm going to even make in the pros. Well, I need to do this for 1, 2, 3 years, in college from there. So,
yeah, I mean, the pro still gives more security long term than what college can do. And again, I don't know. The way that I'm seeing this, Dad, is Saban's upset. He's upset that he finished second in recruiting rankings. He's upset that Deion Sanders is taking players that he could have had. And I don't know. It's to me, it's coming across less calculated, although I'm guessing it's calculated. It's coming across less calculated and more like someone asked a question that just kind of Saban's been upset about for a little bit. And he started talking. And he's at the point in his career, at the age and at where he is, where he can kind of say what he wants to say. And he comes out and he just says, you know what? I'm tired of this. I finished second. You know why I finished second? Well, because Jimbo Fisher cheated. And then we used to be able to get whoever we wanted. Now the NIL's here, and I can't have whoever I want because there are other schools paying them money more than what we're offering them to go to their school, and so they're going to other schools. That's the way it comes across to me. It comes across to me that Nick Saban is upset that he doesn't get what he wants. And the result is he's mad and he's going to share it with people. And he's not going to say it's because I don't get what I want. It's just going to be, you know what? Jimbo Fisher's doing something that's against the rules. Deion Sanders did something that's against the rules, and no one did anything about it. And then he tells his boosters, and again, you said it could be a different context, but can we sustain this? How long can we go losing players to Jimbo Fisher? He got 7 5-star guys in one class, losing people to places like Jackson State. He's, we can't do this. We have to be getting the best players, and in order to do that, we need your money. And that's the way that I read the situation. And Dad, you talked about it, but to say, and I understand he's not going to say otherwise, we don't ever do this. That's baloney. They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it ever since Saban's been there. And here we sit, just a bunch of old men griping and complaining because they're mad about who knows what. And at the end of the day, they're all doing the exact same thing. Any more?
No, I like I said, I agree with you there, and it'll be interesting to see. I think there'll be some fallout from this because you have such high profile people involved. But you're right. Saban apparently is worried that the talent pool. And it's interesting that these two, that he went after him. Of course, we haven't heard any complaints necessarily. Of course, these were the top 2 recruitings, but there were still some other teams in the conference that did very, very well. The SEC is going to be an interesting animal for the next couple of years once you bring in Oklahoma and Texas and, everything moving there with the coaches they have. And, of course, what's got lost now is one of the comments, a month or so ago, it was our buddy Lane Kiffin, that talked about the luxury tax that was going to get hit on A&M or whatever. So, and I'm sure we'll hear from him in the near future.
And what's surprising to me is, what didn't get brought up? USC. USC has landed all kinds of people since hiring Lincoln Riley. And, I mean, you can't tell me that's above board. And with some of the guys they landed, some of it was simple as they were going to go to Oklahoma, and now they're going to USC. Others of them were guys that have transferred and they're going now to USC. You can't tell me there's not money involved with that either. But USC's not in the SEC. USC has not been a threat in any way, shape, or form to Alabama, with maybe the exception, I guess, of recruiting. But I think the time is coming where it's only going to get uglier. And we've said this from the get-go with the NIL, and it has been my biggest concern. I'm all for the student athletes getting money, but there is no way, 2 things. There's no way to make it fair for everybody. And then there's also no way to hold people accountable. There is no way to enforce the rules, the few rules that there are in the NIL, And it's just going to get uglier and uglier and uglier till eventually something breaks, probably the NCAA. And then you get down to those, leagues of, Dabo Sweeney that said we need 50 teams and form our own league, and everybody else can still be in the NCAA and those kinds of things. We're coming very quickly to that end, because the NCAA has lost all control of everything going on in college football, and they don't do anything to help themselves either. They still haven't voted through the expanded playoffs. So, I mean, they're not doing anything to help themselves. And the NCAA is just, they're hurting for sure when it all comes down to it. Other college football news, Dad, is the announcement was made that now conferences, there's new championship rules for the conferences. They no longer have to have divisions. They can kind of just put whatever 2 teams they want to in their championship game. And that's going to get ugly too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Again, if there's no standard, if each conference can decide on their own, because I think one conference, I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit, has already moved on this, and they have a deal with what percentages, a win percentage in the conference games, but it doesn't mean everybody would do that. Again, if the NCAA doesn't make some kind of uniformity, but again, that's hard to do because the size of the conferences is changing, the numbers of teams in there are changing, and this will make it very, very interesting for some of the big, because now when the conference gets so big, everybody can't play everybody. So now scheduling is going to get to be definitely more of an issue. The conference schedule, maybe not as much as the total overall schedule, as far as being able to win your conference championship game. Again, I'm sure you'd like to think the NCAA thought about this, but when you get bigger conferences, I've said that from the beginning. There's going to be, they're going to have to organize this, especially the SEC, but others too. How are they going to, how's this going to be scheduled? How are they going to play? And there could be a real disparity, if we've got to play 4 good teams and this team only plays 2 of the better teams. So it was kind of that way with the divisions in some ways. I never liked the fact that a weak division team could, be in the conference championship. But now that the bigger conferences are going to make that more complicated. And like I said, I think we're headed to, was a super conference, something different than just these individual conferences, because again, there's just going to be problems every year.
Yeah, Pac-12 is the conference you mentioned. It's already gone away, scrapped all their division stuff, and going to reset kind of how they do it, trying to help themselves out, getting into the college, playoffs and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. To me, it feels like there's not progress being made. It's going the other direction, or whatever is technically the opposite of progress. It's regress, I guess. I don't know. But I don't like it, man. College sports are so fun, have been. I've gotten really involved down here at Eastern Kentucky and going to football games and basketball games, and it's still small and enjoyable and whatever, but everything else has just gotten, I don't know, out of control. It's changing so much. It's taking away the innocence, even though there was never innocence in college sports. Go back to SMU, go back to other things as well. There's never innocence, but it takes away the innocence of college football and just makes it more like a professional sport. And we've already got professional football. We don't need another professional league. We just need college football for what it is, the atmosphere, the energy, the rivalries, all that kind of stuff. And now it's going to get down to where teams are manipulating their way into things because the conference is doing their part so that they get money. It all comes back to money at the end of the day for college football.
Yeah, it does. Again, the NIL, started out with saying, well, hey, these kids ought to be able to make some money while they're in college. But like I said before, college sports was about, kids, getting scholarships. Not every athlete obviously graduated, but there's people that have gone back and graduated after. And the deal is it'd be important to get a college degree. You know, you're a freshman in college and you're making the money some of these guys do. It's easy to say, why do I need a degree? Now, you know, they may someday, but I think that's really diluting the whole idea of a scholarship is beneficial or a scholarship is a big deal. The big deal now is how much, you know, money you can make with NIL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the education aspect of college sports has been the focal point for several years now. But there was still that, I don't know, school pride, I guess. There's less and less school pride. It's all about individuals. And, you know, it's causing problems in the locker rooms. Wait a second, this kid made how much money? I've been starting here for 3 years. This freshman made how much money? You know, those kinds of things. It's going to cause issues in the locker rooms, more things for the coaches to have to deal with and manage. And again, it just takes away from what once was, hey, I get to play for this school. And now it just doesn't seem to be the same as it once was. You know, at Kentucky, we had an issue with basketball this year. Shaden Sharp, he comes to Kentucky, never plays a second of Kentucky basketball. And now he's going to go in the NBA. Looks like he's going to get drafted in the top 10 of the NBA draft. And Coach Cal is trying to brag about it. And the fan base is going, wait a second. This kid didn't even play for us. He could have played for us. He chose not to play for us. He used our university to get him to that next level, but he never once gave anything to this university. And now we're seeing, at least in Lexington, this turn against the school, against the athletic department, against the basketball program, because no, people are now using us. And because of that, now we're angry. Now, the reality is the fans want to use the players. But that being said, that's the shift. It's no longer about team spirit. It's no longer about school spirit. It's about what can I get? And everybody's selfish. I'm not pretending like I'm not. Everybody's selfish. But it's what can I get? And, you know, how little do I have to give in order to get? And we're seeing it more and more in college sports, and we're going to continue to see it as long as the NIL is around, and as long as everything's set up the way that it's set up. It's going to continue to be an ongoing issue. And now we've got rule changes, so you're going to see conferences making changes, and bigger conferences have to make changes anyhow. And you know, we're going to come down to a point where there's going to be a college that says we deserve to be in the championship, and their conference says, sorry, you're not going to. And that school is going to be looking for a new conference, and that's going to cause more issues with the conferences and everything that goes into it as well. Anything else on those topics?
No, I'm sure there'll be a lot in the days ahead. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know Eastern Kentucky is part of the ASUN conference. They announced this week that they are going to do what they did last year, ASUN WAC Challenge. It's an automatic qualifier. There'll be 10 teams involved, and one team will give you the automatic qualifier there in the NCAA. And they had to do that because both conferences got up to 6 teams last year, but then a team from each conference left, so they're down to 5 teams. Underneath that 6-team threshold, the NCAA requires for the qualifiers, and so they join again. ASUN WAC coming together for another year, which is a fun time as well. Okay, and then to remind folks about intheclutch.com. It is licensed apparel, Major League Baseball, NBA. They've got some great retro stuff there as well. Go check out the t-shirts, intheclutch.com. Use the code SPORTSSTOVE, and you're going to get 10% off your first purchase there at intheclutch.com. Some great shirts and things available there for teams, for players, stadiums, different things like that. Some fun stuff there as well. All right, Dan, let's move. Let's go ahead and do the NBA. I know neither one of us spends a whole lot of time with the NBA anymore, but we are in the playoffs. We had some surprises happen with the Dallas Mavericks specifically moving forward. I was surprised about the Celtics. They were the higher seed, whatever. But I thought Milwaukee was going to beat them. They did not. So anyways, you've got Miami and Boston. They're actually playing, getting ready to tip off as we're recording. So we can't talk a whole lot about that at the moment. But game one, Golden State and Dallas. Golden State dominated Dallas. Get the win. It's just one of those things where now you got a series, but to me, it's looking like we're going to be sitting there with Golden State in the finals. And I've mentioned that. I don't remember if it's been on this program or on one of the ones I was visiting on. But I felt like Golden State was a high likelihood of making the NBA finals because, again, of the team they had. But now they're going to go up against either Boston or Miami. Dad, you claim to be a Boston fan. Their coach went to the front office at the beginning of the season. They hired a new coach, pretty much the same players, and now they are just 4 games away from the NBA finals.
Yes, I mean, somebody knew what they were doing on that one from there. And, again, they play good defense. They play well as a team. Where they can beat Miami, I don't know. But I do think, I've paid more attention to it this year. And there's been, some good basketball games, but a lot of good basketball to watch as far as the players that are involved. And so I think it'll continue to be that way right down to the championship series. I think it's a good year for the NBA, at least at this point, if they don't have any other, major issues come out of it. So,
yeah, I'm cheering for the Heat at this point just because they've got Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, Kentucky guys, on their team. Actually, they also got Michael Mulder. He doesn't play at all, but he's a Kentucky guy as well. So that's who I'm cheering for. I think Golden State and Miami. I texted my friend Brad, who hosts local sports radio here in Lexington, and he is a gambler. And Dad, neither you or I are gamblers. So I texted Brad and I said, Brad, Miami and 6 is at plus 750. So I said, go ahead and put $1,000 of your money on it. And if we win, then I'll give you 30% of the winnings. And he said my math was off on that. So I'm not sure what he meant by that. But nonetheless, Miami-Boston should be a great series. Miami won game 1. But I will say Miami in 6 and Golden State Golden State might sweep them, Dad. We'll give them 1. I'll say Golden State in 5. But I don't know. I think the Warriors, unless they just have a down game, and as much as I like Luka, I don't think Dallas has a shot against Golden State.
Well, no, I think, it looks like Golden State will definitely win. But again, when you look at the last series for Dallas, it wouldn't surprise me if they could win 2 games. But, we'll see what happens the next game there. The Boston series, I think, easily could go to game 7. But, we'll see. I mean, Miami, handled them obviously in the first game there. So I think it's still kind of wide open right now. We'll see.
Yeah, Jason Kidd. We'll see how good a coach Jason Kidd is coaching in Dallas. He's had decent runs at his first stops as a head coach in the NBA, but that's been a long time ago. He's going to have to make some major adjustments because Golden State, the way they played in game 1, shut down Luka, just playing one-on-one for the most part with Wiggins covering him. I mean, goodness, it's an uphill battle at the very least. I like what they said. They asked the coaches about each other. Steve Kerr, said, yeah, Jason was a great player and he was great skills, all this kind of stuff. They asked Jason, he goes, yeah, I remember Steve Kerr. He had Michael Jordan. So not as much respect about Steve Kerr's playing days, I guess, for Jason Kidd as well. But nonetheless, should be fun series either way for both of those NBA series. All right, let's wrap up with some NFL talk. And let's see here. Bradbury, cornerback, playing for the Giants. Giants said, we can't pay you. Tried to trade him, couldn't trade him. They had to cut him. They cut him. He gets picked up by a division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. And Dad, Philadelphia this offseason, they go out and they get a starting cornerback. They get A.J. Brown, a number 1 wide receiver. They have a great draft class. And again, I feel like we've talked about the East, but not a great division. Philadelphia, if Jalen Hurts plays above average, I mean, I'm starting to go lean Philadelphia as my dark horse Super Bowl pick this year.
Well, I don't know about Super Bowl, but I think they've got a good shot at the division. I mean, they've definitely made moves. They've not just sit still from there. And like you said, if Jalen Hurts can perform at all, which I think he can, they've got a great shot. As far as winning the division. And of course, you win the division, you get you're not only in the playoffs, you get one game at home, and things can happen from there. So I think Philadelphia fans probably would be very positive going into this. Surely you'd have to be with the moves they've made. And like I said, getting the wide receiver, that was a big plus.
A huge plus. Yeah. And again, I go back to Cincinnati Bengals. They went out and got all kinds of weapons for Joe Burrow, and now Philadelphia has added weapons for Jalen Hurts. And again, if it doesn't work out, Philadelphia is set up with draft picks to go out and get a quarterback in the draft as well. But I mean, just looking at the offseason so far, Philadelphia is one of the top teams, I think, that as far as winning the offseason, I think they've done a phenomenal job with what they brought in and really set themselves up for success. But now they're going to have to do it, obviously, on the field as well. You've got Philadelphia sources. I don't know if you've had a chance to chat with them since the draft to find out how excited they were about what Philadelphia is doing.
Yeah, I haven't. I tried to get a hold of him last week, and I'll try here in the future because I am interested to see what the talk is. He keeps up on Philadelphia radio up there, and he has relatives that are very connected in. And so, yeah, I would think Philadelphia fans would be very optimistic. And again, part of it would be the division they're in. So it'll be interesting because it looks to me like the one team that hasn't made as many positive moves was a team that everybody would say would be on top, which would be the Cowboys. But some people say they're loaded and, they're ready to go. So we will see. Of course, Washington, be interesting to see, with the new quarterback, if that can make a difference. And of course, they're very talented. We've talked about the skill positions and the defense that they have. And, the Giants have made some good draft picks. And again, they have a question of quarterback too. So that should be a very interesting division.
Yeah, Brian Daboll, new Giants head coach, which I think was a great hire. He says we want Daniel Jones to turn it loose. Well, he's turned it loose many times. He's got a turnover-prone quarterback, but I'm not sure that's what he means by that. Dad, you know that it's very rare for us to feel bad for the Chicago Bears. Tyreek Cohen, running back for the Chicago Bears, suffers another major injury. Looks like he'll be out a whole nother season. It'll be 2 straight seasons now with injuries. Tyreek Cohen's a phenomenal back. He's a great fantasy player. He's great in real life as well. And as much as we don't like the Bears, we just hate to see a guy struggling like this, especially consecutive seasons now with major injuries there in Chicago.
Yeah, it's tough when you see a guy with a major injury, 2 years in a row, because it's hard enough to come back after one. You don't find many that can come back after two. And of course, the team's going to have to make adjustments and get players in and everything like that. That was really, sad in many ways to hear about that and even the way it happened.
Yes, indeed. And then Deshaun Watson, he had a meeting with the NFL this week. I'm sure talking about the legal issues and everything going on. If you had to guess right now, how many games is Deshaun Watson getting suspended?
I would think 6.
Yeah, I think 6 is probably the minimum. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't know. One argument I heard was there's so many people who've come forward, and there's enough things that he's admitted to doing that weren't necessarily legal. There's enough there for them to have plenty of ammunition to suspend them for as long as they want to. I think it could be 10 games that gets appealed down to 6, or 8 games that gets appealed down to 4. But I think 6 is the minimum that he gets suspended. And I think it's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why Cleveland hasn't gotten rid of Baker Mayfield yet. There's a chance they need Baker Mayfield. And now they went out and got Jacoby Brissett. I would still take Baker Mayfield over Jacoby Brissett. And I think Mayfield getting a second chance somewhere else might be really good for him and beneficial for the team that gets him. But, I mean, it doesn't look like we're any closer to figuring out where Baker Mayfield's going to play football at come this fall, right?
No, we really haven't. And I'd be surprised no matter how long that Watson gets suspended for, that if Mayfield would want to go back and play there. Right. I think the bridges have been burned there, and he'd be lame duck at best. And I just don't think that's where he wants to be. But I'm a little surprised he isn't anywhere yet. So you never know. But I'm sure the Browns in many ways are wanting to see. I think it's good that Watson and the NFL are meeting that way. They can get some direction on what's going to happen there. So.
Yep, I agree with you on that one. All right, that's all I got. You got anything else that you want to talk about before we close up?
No, like I said, there's just a circus going on in college football, so I'm sure it'll keep building and building, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm going to talk about that circus next Friday. Indiana head football coach Tom Allen joins the show. It'll be the third time he's come on the program. And I'm not sure what he'll give us, but we're going to ask some questions about the circus that is college football and see what happens from there. But excited to have Coach Allen back with us. That will air next Friday, a week from today. Of course, we'll have another episode out on Monday, and encourage everybody to tune in. Regularly drop episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This last episode that I dropped at was Wednesday's local hour. Interviewed Raga Christiansdottir, the ASUN golfer of the year, EKU golfer. Had a really fun conversation with her. She has already been in one major amateur tournament last summer. She'll be in 2 this summer. So if you're into golf, go back and listen to that episode. We also had Tucker Schroeder, offensive lineman from EKU, on as well, and had a good conversation with him also. But we don't talk to a lot of golfers on this program, and so I thought it was a really fun conversation, and would encourage people to go back and check that out. Don't forget to visit intheclutch.com. Use Sports Stove for your 10% off your purchase and whatnot from there. Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see.